will not waste any of your time, Secretary Raffensperger. I guess just starting off, I know the day kind of got off to a shaky start in some counties, some precincts. What did you guys kind of do since then? How did you guys get it kind of back on track to turn it around?
Well, the counties did have some issues in some of the counties. 159 counties. I think 150 counties, you could say, really well, went really smoothly. But the ones that didn't, it was very glaringly obvious. But now it's about 5 o'clock. And so, those technical issues have been worked on. But now it's just working through the backlog of voters. Some places we have 250 voters that are in line, make sure we can move those through. But the lines are moving now, and that's a good thing. So we're excited. It is a strong turnout from all apparent, views of it. And we had strong turnout with the absentee. We had over 1 million voters that voted absentee. We had 325,000 people voted in person in the 16 days of early voting. And it looks like strong turnout today. So people are really engaged in the process, and that's a good thing.
Your first big major election as Secretary of State, of course, you had all these new machines. Just your take on how the day is going. I know you said voter turnout was strong, but just kind of the first election that you've tackled personally.
Well, it's a lot of firsts. So it is new machines, then it's training, and it's also training new poll workers, because many people don't realize the average age of poll workers was over 70. So many of those poll workers stepped out and said, I don't feel comfortable being a poll worker right now with the COVID, and even if it were post-COVID, there's still enough out there, and so they haven't, stepped in, and so by that meant the counties had to find, new poll workers, and so that threw, another situation that they had to deal with, and then also we're just dealing with fewer machines in a certain area, just because of the spacing requirements, and then you also have to clean off the machines, disinfect them, which takes additional time. Add those all together, and it just, is extending the process. And so I give a shout out to all the counties. If your county didn't have an issue, they did a great job. And we've seen that in so many areas. A few counties, had some failures. And that really gets back to making sure that you train and making sure you have the right management team in place. Obviously, we'll have a runoff in 2 months. And I think we're going to learn best practices and look at the counties that really got it right. Make sure that you open up on time and make sure that, people aren't having to wait, more than, that is more really should be expected, which we say 30 minutes in line. And obviously, some people have had to stand three hours in line, and that's well beyond anything that's acceptable from our office perspective.
Do you think that the training impacts from COVID, with a lot of people who have been doing this for years, decades, maybe even, kind of caused some of the issues that we've seen at the polls with newer people having to be trained in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, there were some hurdles that we had to, with COVID and then the separation, the training new workers, there was an issue there. And so you have to understand that, and voters have to take that under, consideration. And then it really gets back to making sure that people are trained. And so you have to figure out how are you going to really overcome those hurdles. Some counties have done an exceptional job in really making sure they had, trained poll workers, and some other counties just struggled with that. And so let's look at the counties that really hit, out of the ballpark. They did everything great, and let's try and emulate that in the other counties that, obviously found some areas where they need to work on for the runoff election in 2 months.
I'm not sure if you know specifics, but do you know what the biggest issues coming out of Bibb and Houston County were as it relates to the polls today?
We really haven't heard anything of any major. Just, obviously, if it's like other places, the lines were a little bit longer than people expected. And some of that was just due to the spacing requirements. You had to space your voters out 6 feet on center in lines. So when I showed up at Cobb County, voters were outside. In about 45 minutes, they actually had moved back inside the building where they were still spaced 6 feet on center. But so your lines were longer just because of that. Doesn't mean there's more workers there, or more voters there. But in many cases, there were great.
Can you please get him?
I'm sorry.
Please. Sorry. I have like a 1-year-old puppy and my husband just got off work. I am so sorry. Can you just repeat that last little bit without his barking in the back? I think we got you perfect up until then.
Well, even with the perfect situation, perfectly trained poll workers, when you showed up today, you're going to see that the lines were spaced out 6 feet on center. All the poll workers had on masks and gloves, and they were disinfecting. All that adds additional time. And that's why we really had a strong push to encourage people to vote with the absentee process. And so we know that some counties really had tremendous success today, and we want to give a shout out to all that. As it relates to Houston and Bibb, really nothing of any major significance, and I think most of your voters would attest to that, and that's a good thing. But where we did struggle, we want to make sure that we don't struggle again in the runoff in 2 months.
With those long lines, do you believe everyone who wanted to vote got a chance to vote today or will get the chance?
Oh, they will get a chance. Many of the locations, many of the counties will be staying open. I know that in some counties, there'll just be a certain number of precincts will be open for another hour. So they're taking the steps to make sure that everyone that wants to vote has that opportunity to vote. And so if you were there this morning and thought the line was too long, then please come out again. It's right now, it's about 6 o'clock, so lost track of time, but got another hour and 10 minutes to be able to vote. So please come back and make sure you have the opportunity to vote if you felt that it was going to take too long this morning. We want to make sure that everyone that wants to vote has that opportunity. And that's why we had the big push for absentee. That's why we had a big, strong push for the early 60 days of early voting. That was important also. And obviously, we're going to have great turnout today.
And then one of my last questions, because of, I know your office came out and said you found no problems with the actual equipment, correct?
Right. Yes. It was typically user error, and that gets back to training. Some of that was you had people that had just been hired last week, and it's tough to get up to speed on any equipment. But for them, obviously, they had never even voted an election and never been a poll worker before. But then, obviously, we had people that were poll workers, and obviously, we should have had more training there. And the county, we're going to go back to that. What additional training do you need? We provided an awful lot of that with our vendor, and we thought the message had been picked up. We had done online training. But if there's anything we can do, we're going to revisit that. We really need to help, the counties that struggle today. They obviously got it figured out by, in the afternoon at some point at 6 o'clock. And now it's just really working off that backlog of anyone who's still online.
Do you think this will, with all the problems that we saw this morning, hurt the credibility of the election?
Oh, no. At the end of the day, you're going to know that the winner really won and the loser really lost. But I think what's really important is all of our counties need to be prepared for huge, turnout for fall. We're expecting we could have up to 5 million voters vote in the fall. We were thinking that we could have perhaps up to 2 million. And here we're looking at, 1.5 million that are going to vote in the general primary, and that's in spite of COVID. And it's also still a record beater for election turnout. This beats 2016 and 2018, general primary election turnout.
We're going to have to wrap it up there.
Yes, I was like, your battery died. Final question on the investigation. I know that you guys sent out that statement. Where does that stand? What will you guys have to do? And that is my final question.
Well, we'll be digging into all the issues in Fulton County over the coming weeks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Nice virtually meeting you all.
Good to see you too.
Yes, good seeing you too. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
All right, good night.